Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's Max from the Mama's Legacy podcast, and today we're starting the first episode of the podcast book club, and I'm joined here with my good friend Brad from BSscouting. How you doing, Brad?
Good, Max. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm joined here with Thomas from Goated NBA, right?
Yes, go to NBAnews.com. Good to be here with Max and Brad.
Hey, appreciate both of you guys coming on, and I'm excited to finally talk some hoops. And let's start off with, one of the hot topics right now, the rookie race. It's a lot closer than it's been the past couple of years. The past couple of years, you go, he's going to win it or him. You can say one or two guys. This year, there's a bunch of surprises, twists, and turns. I mean, Brad, we'll start off with you. You're the guy that you probably have a printout of every rookie's stats from every second he's been in the NBA. So who do you really think is leading the NBA rookie race, and who's surprised you the most?
Well, two different questions, but first off, who's leading it? I mean, I don't know how you don't go Scotty Barnes.
Mhm.
He's just been putting up insane numbers through the first 6 games as a Raptor. He put up like a franchise record for points. That was like 106 points through his first 6 games or something like that. It was insane. And obviously on the defensive end, he has all the tools to be solid. And the Raptors situation is so good for him right now, especially with Pascal out, I think, because they're not asking him to do anything he's not comfortable doing.
Mm-hmm.
He gets to stay in the paint. He gets to stay in the post, play in transition. He's not out on the three-point line very often. They purposely provide spacing for him, and it works for them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Scotty Barnes is probably number one in the race. I mean, or
Yeah.
Chris Duarte, obviously, because he's looking nasty right now. But I think the biggest surprise so far has been Suggs. I think this by surprise, not in a good way.
You mean disappointment?
Yeah, he's shooting
Okay.
29% shooting. It's
Yeah.
really hard to watch. I mean, there's some other players like good surprises, like for example, Mobley. He did terrible in the preseason. Everybody was like, "Oh, maybe he's going to be a bust," and now he's shooting 55% from the field. He's looking pretty nice. So I mean, but realistically, I mean, I think you all got to go Scotty Barnes leading the race. I mean, he's just he looks nasty. Nearly 17 points, I think, like 8 rebounds. He's looking nasty out there. I mean, Thomas, who do you really think's leading this race, and what are some players that surprised you, good or bad?
Well, in terms of leading the race, I think it is Barnes. Seven games into the season, we haven't really seen a lot of Cade yet. We haven't really seen the best Jalen Green yet. I think he has more that he can contribute, and I think that if a player like Evan Mobley was given a role like Scotty Barnes, we could see him doing something similar to that right now. One player that I want to talk about, just because he's never going to see any love in the actual Rookie of the Year race, but maybe we could see him like in the 4th place or 3rd place spot in the voting. Davion Off-Night Mitchell. I just want to, because I'm a low-key Kings fan. I'm not a high-key Kings fan, but I'm a low-key Kings fan, and I love watching this guy because he doesn't even have the greatest stats, but you can just look at the opposing guard stats and he had a great impact on defense.
I mean, I agree. He slowed down Steph Curry.
That was nice. Steph's my favorite player, and I was like, all right, respect. Off night.
No,
Yeah, I know.
great player. Yeah. Then to go to your earlier point with Suggs, I mean, yes, he's been, because Max, you're saying how Suggs has been a little disappointing, which is fair to say. Yeah, he needs to improve his handles a little bit. I think that's been the biggest thing for him, because you see him fumble the ball a lot, especially when he tries to drive, and it's just not as decisive, where his mind's trying to do one thing, but what's actually going on is doing another.
Mm-hmm. Suggs, he's a prospect. I think he's going to be up there. I think he's going to be one of the top like 4 or 5 people that have been drafted. I'm excited. I hopefully get to see Giddy play a bit more. I like Giddy.
He's got real nice vision.
Giddy, I was like really high on. I mean, but compared to these other guys, I don't think you can really say his name right now. Some of these guys are just going off. I even think Sengun's doing really well.
I was surprised by Sengun, honestly. I didn't think he was going to be able to. I was a lot lower on Sengun than most people, just because he didn't really seem to fit the mold of a player that the traditional center / power forward that you would like to see. I really like watching him. I would want to see him be able to replicate what he's doing now on a better team, or in the future, a team that actually is making the. I guess I'm just trying to say I don't really see where he would fit on a championship roster, but we'll have to see in the coming years.
I think his perfect fit
Yeah,
right now is actually in Houston. I think this is beautiful for him. I mean, he's on a young team. They're not striving to win now. He's getting plenty of minutes. I mean, he's getting 20 minutes a night in his rookie season. I think he's going to blossom into a top 15 center. I don't know about 10 yet. I got to see more film. Got to see him perform, but I definitely believe that Houston is probably the best place for him.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Şengün actually. Coming in, I had him as a top 10 guy, and for a lot of reasons, he reminded me a lot of Sabonis with the passing. He has really good hands, and one of the more underrated things that bigs do is positioning. He's always moving. If you watch him play, he's always moving under the rim, positioning himself. I mean, if he got real minutes, he'd be one of the top offensive rebounders in the NBA, like Sabonis is. So if you really watch that part, and you saw that a little bit in the summer league a little more when he got the full action, but yeah, he's a stud. He was the MVP of the Turkish league, like at 18 years old. That's just crazy.
No, that is really impressive. I'm excited to see what he can do. But something that I wouldn't be excited for right now is to be in that Celtics locker room.
Yeah.
Marcus Smart called out the best two players on the team. Now, Marcus Smart has been with the Boston Celtics for ages. I mean, he's been there before Jason Tatum and JT were there. He's been there way back. He's been back there when Rondo was there. So, I mean, for Marcus Smart, who's the heartbeat of the Boston Celtics, I like to think he's the Energizer Bunny, the heartbeat, the soul of that team, to go publicly and call out the two best guys on the roster. That's got to mean something. I mean, the Celtics are off to a pretty bad start. I think that's very fair to say. But for one of your veteran leaders to go into the media, which is kind of like an unwritten rule, yeah, you don't call out your teammates in public, go out post-game and call those two out. I mean, what did you take away from that? We'll start off with Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, to harken back to what we were talking about before the show, Marcus Smart's like the Draymond Green of the Celtics in a weird way, just in that personality. But frankly, like, if you're saying this to the media now, I don't see Smart as a guy who would just drop a bombshell in the media. He's probably been saying this in the locker room or behind the scenes for a while now before he comes out to the media and says something like that. I just have to wonder, like, this whole Brad Stevens dynamic with Emeka Okafor, do you think that, like, the Boston Celtics actually have like a toxic situation on their hands where their locker room is kind of star centric? Because quite frankly, like, you can kind of see it on the way they play. They don't really try to move the ball between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they don't even like really try and share the ball. I think, wasn't there that game against the Knicks? Jaylen Brown was hot, and they kept giving the ball to Jason Tatum, and I was like, "Why? What are you doing? Give him the ball. He's the hot hand." Oh, sorry, Brad. What were you saying?
No, I'm agreeing with you, man. Yep, that was game one. Yeah, that was in that overtime game.
It was whack, completely.
No, yeah, I actually am very glad you brought up the point about, because I actually would argue against the fact that you said Marcus Smart isn't the type of guy to say something like that's rash after a game, because he can be hot-headed at times, but and like you said, kind of like Draymond Green, they'll say things at times, but in the heat of the moment. But in that press conference, did Marcus Smart seem heated or not in the right mindset to you?
No, he wasn't angry at all. No, and real quick, just before I let you get back to that, I didn't say he wasn't the type of guy to do that, but he's never done this before.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, so like you said, he was so calm. So that makes me think, like Thomas said, this has been a recurring issue. And Yeah, I think they're in real trouble.
Well, I like what you're saying, Brad. Part of it too is, he came and said, what he said, but then afterwards he said, but we're working on it, right? He had to add in that little part to like couch it. It was almost like it was like a rehearsed. To me, it kind of sounded like it was a rehearsed comment that this is what I'm going to say to the media. And I don't know who you would bounce that off of, but I think that Marcus Smart knew what he was doing, and I've heard that Boston is not the best locker room situation before. So I can't imagine that we're doing a great job right now, making our other players 3 through 14 on the roster very happy.
Yeah, and then also the fact that, or they also had, this we got mentioned, Ime Udoka and Jaylen Brown had a little bit of a fight or argument at practice the other day. So, there's been tensions going on. It's not a secret. This isn't the first time even that something's came up in the past week.
Mm-hmm. No, I think the Celtics have one of the most toxic locker rooms in the NBA. And I do agree with you, Thomas. I do believe that Marcus Smart has been probably telling them this in private for quite a while now. And I've come to notice that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as a duo, they're the two most, they don't look toxic on the court, but when you really dive down, you look at it, they are probably the most toxic team duo there is. They're shooting 40, 50 shots tonight. The rest of the roster's maybe getting 5 shots. Obviously it's a bit, expanded, but the rest of the roster, they're not getting the touches, they're not getting the action. And these two guys, they don't care who's hot, they want their shots. Jaylen Brown, if Jason Tatum's hot and he's shooting 25 for 35 and Jaylen Brown hasn't shot the ball 15, 20 times, he's going to shoot the ball 15, 20 times. Doesn't matter what quarter we're in, how hot Jason Tatum is, he wants his shots. That's how that duo works, and I've come to notice that's a bit toxic. The shots this year, I believe Jason Tatum shooting about 24 and Brown shooting 20 shots. This year, that's not a great start, especially if you're not winning games. You got to change something up. And I do believe that there are going to be some big trades coming out of Boston this year. And one of them I feel like is going to include Bradley Beal.
I actually agree there.
Well,
I agree it could happen. I don't know if Wizards will actually do it, but I think Celtics will try.
Mm-hmm.
They'll definitely try to get somebody. I think it is interesting, though. I like your point, Max. You think about all the different superstar combos in the league, right? The KD and Hardens, the LeBron and ADs. It's almost as if Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they think that they are at that level right now. And Tatum's only 23, Brown's 25. This is not one of those. This is not the case in general. Like, they're just not going to be able to play on that level yet. So I feel like we're going to have to see like a recalibration just in terms of their game plan and their system. Like, quite frankly, they just can't play a season like this. They're already losing. They're not going to be able to win games this way.
No, on a much minor scale, it kind of reminds me of the situation with Kevin Durant and Westbrook when they were teammates. Kevin Durant clearly was the better offensive shooter, and then you'd see in the playoffs or in a late game stretch, Russell Westbrook's taking more 3-point shots than Kevin Durant. You start to notice that if one's hot, the other one doesn't care. They want their shots, and the Boston Celtics have had this duo together for a little bit now, and they haven't won. They haven't made much noise. When you see them play, you're like, yeah, they're going to be a top 5 seed. But do you see them getting past the Bucks? Do you see them getting past the 76ers? Do you even see them getting past the Heat? Let alone maybe the Knicks now.
Did you say top 5 seed?
Top 5 seed.
Oh, no.
No, in the East.
Nope.
No. Let me tell you. This is a spoiler. This is coming out tomorrow for GoatedNBAnews.com. The Celtics are not making the playoffs. That's my take.
I don't think they will.
When I was saying they're making the top 5, like the past couple of years, they've always been a top seed.
Yeah, and part of that, I think we also have to acknowledge the fact of the difference between Stevens and Udoka, and the fact that Stevens, his offense, it was primarily isolation, so it was kind of the system that Tatum and Brown, it was expected that Tatum and Brown were supposed to get the shots, and then they just played stellar defense. They were always one of the top defensive teams, and they won games, which meant people were happy, generally. At least as far as we know, stuff that wasn't coming out like it is this year. So, yeah, I mean, I think we have to take that part into account too.
Yeah, I mean, the Brad Stevens, it worked. He was a great head coach to the players, in my opinion. What I've heard, you didn't hear too much about arguments. I mean, like you said, there's already been a confrontation between players and the new head coach, and we're, what,
Mhm.
6, 7 games into the season. You can't be having that if you want to be a successful team, which is why I think everybody will probably get blown up, moved out, or at least tried to. Not everybody, obviously, but like, I don't think anybody's untouchable except Jason Tatum. Obviously, I think you keep him. I think Jason Tatum has the better attitude out of him and Jaylen Brown. I think he's the better player, obviously. Well, that's for sure. But attitude wise, I think he's the better mentally. And I think everybody on this roster is touchable except Jason Tatum. But the system they have right now clearly doesn't work anymore. The Celtics players are tired of it because they know it doesn't work come playoff time. It's kind of like, Houston's game plan. Regular season, yeah, they win in 60 games a year. No problem. Playoff time, if you get out the second round, you did good.
Yeah.
It's rough. And they don't have these like connecting pieces too. I feel like they are really missing like that Kemba Walker, being the guy that can really rein them in, or that Gordon Hayward presence. I mean, they have a little bit of that with Hal Horford, but I don't know. I think Hal Horford is one of those guys that's been playing a lot better than you really see in the news, but you just don't. They need more of those guys who can really connect the team on the court, and it's not just the JT and JB show.
Well,
there's a little bit more of a vision possession there.
I'm glad you brought that up because I have a slightly different take on the matter. They have the connecting pieces there, but the connecting pieces are tired of just being the connecting pieces, and we saw that with Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart, he's been the connecting piece. He's known how to reel the locker room in. Yes, he gets a bit hot-headed at times, but he's kind of like the Draymond of the team. He'll get hot-headed, but at the same time, he knows how to, get the locker room on the same page. And I think Marcus Smart's finally tired of that. Al Horford is another connecting piece. He's been playing well. He doesn't get enough media attention. I mean, he's an old man doing his part. But Marcus Smart, he's the heartbeat. And when the heartbeat says we have problems, you have problems.
Yeah. I mean that's actually a really great way to say it. We're gonna have to see. I think they do have some positional issues to kind of work out, just in terms of not really having a third guy who can play. I don't think Grant Williams has been getting enough minutes. I think that they've got this kind of weird center rotation. They're kind of too used to Robert Williams being injured almost, where they just have these other centers just waiting for Robert Williams to tweak his ankle or do something. We're gonna have to see. I kind of want to see a lot more out of. I think part of it too is that there's a lot of trust almost issues with Ime Udoka, and just in terms of his other players like Hernan Gomez and Richardson. I haven't seen them do a lot yet in the ways that I would be looking for, maybe if I was the head coach. So maybe that gets better with time. But yeah, right now, like I said, I don't really see them as like a top 8 seed. I see them as maybe a 9 or 10 seed, and I don't know in that play-in tournament unless they really get fired up, I don't know if they're going to be able to make the playoffs. So that's in an Eastern Conference that I do think is a lot stronger now. I will say that.
I definitely agree. The Eastern Conference does look pretty strong. I mean, when the Knicks are competing for like a top 4 seed, in my opinion, I think they might get the 4th, 5th. You have a strong conference. The East is strong again once the Knicks are competing for a playoff spot. But we'll stop talking about the Celtics. We'll probably revisit them in a month or so when they're still probably losing games in all reality, and they've probably traded one of their stars. But let's start off with another team in the East, the Miami Heat. They're 5-1 right now. They look nasty. What are you guys' initial takes? Is Kyle Lowry that piece? Are they gonna be competing with the Lakers again in the finals? Start off with you, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the league, coming into this season, I thought Lowry was one of the best acquisitions. I thought that's who the Lakers actually should have pursued, not Russell Westbrook. I thought they should have pursued Kyle Lowry because they could have gave up a lot less even to get Kyle Lowry.
THT's too valuable. Come on now.
Oh, come on. Stop with that. Get to that. But yeah, so look, I mean, Lowry, yeah, he's been say what you want about him. The stats may not always be there, but he's a winner. And then he fits that Miami Heat culture. I had them as the 3rd best team. Only with the Nets and Lakers looking, I had as higher odds to win it, but they both look like crap right now. Let's be real. So the team right now that looks most championship ready is the Miami Heat. I know it's early, but they do look the most championship ready with their defense. They got PJ Tucker this offseason. I mean, they just look like such a complete team.
So the Miami Heat,
something to be said.
The Miami Heat lost one of their biggest playoff pushers too. I think we're all kind of undervaluing Goran Dragic's value to this team. Goran Dragic was like in a lot of other situations, kind of the heartbeat. Him and Jimmy Butler were the heartbeat. They were co-heartbeats of that team. I mean, maybe you could say Bam too, but Jimmy kind of, Bam was Jimmy's mini-me in other words. But Goran Dragic has been that Heat guy. Him, Haslam, they've been there. They know Heat culture. And Dragic is always a nice piece to have in the playoffs. I mean, I think if Dragic didn't get hurt in the final against the Lakers, I think we're in Game 7. I still think we win it, but I think there's a Game 7 to be had. Whether Bam's healthy or not, Dragic is that guy. He can reel a locker room and he can get the team on the same page. He can be a fire starter. And Kyle Lowry, I think, is better than Dragic. But Dragic, the loss of him, I think is going to hurt them in the playoffs. Sorry, Thomas, for cutting you off.
Oh, no, it's good. I was just going to say, I think there's something to be said about having a guy like Jimmy Butler being the best player on your team. He's that senior voice, just the sort of like mindset and approach that he brings to the game. It's going to really help get some victories over these other teams that are kind of still figuring themselves out. So I can't say that I wasn't expecting the Heat to be a top seed just because of how their team is constructed versus like what the kinks that they have to iron out versus the kinks that some of these other teams have to iron out. I mean, if you look at the games they've already played, 5-1, but win over the Orlando Magic, win over the Hornets and the Grizzlies. Like, these are some teams that are a little on the young side. And I think that is one of those things that really is something that you can press your advantage on in that aspect. Also, like, Tyler Hero's been balling out. I don't think people were really prepared for that. I think people just kind of like accepted that he was going to be an average to good player. But now it's almost like he's back on track to reach some sort of stardom there. So maybe that's some Heat culture. Maybe that's a little less Jack Harlow that he's been fucking with anymore. But we'll have to see. I'm liking the Heat though. I'm a little higher on the Heat than I definitely was previously at the beginning of the season.
Well, other than my Dragic statement, I'm very low on the Heat still because, like you said, Jimmy Butler being your best player says something about you. Jimmy Butler is not on the level of other leaders of other teams. I think that's fair to say. Jimmy Butler, you can't put in the same class as Kawhi Leonard. Jimmy Butler, you can't put in the same class as, Anthony Davis even. I think Anthony Davis blows Jimmy Butler out of the park. We can argue that any day of the week. I mean, hell, I think the 76ers being led by Joel Embiid's a better leader than Jimmy Butler as your best player. I don't think Jimmy Butler is
in a player in a skill or ability. I would say yes, but I think in terms, there's something to be said for an intangible, type guy that you can rally around. I mean, they say it themselves that this Heat culture that they've built. I think there's something to be said about that. It makes the team a little bit stronger than maybe it looks on paper.
Well, I mean, you can't be a great leader and then get outscored by Bryn Forbes in the playoffs.
I mean, yes, you can. Bro, the man wakes up at like 4 a.m. That's impressive as fuck. If I'm a 19-year-old and I'm around a guy like that, I'm thinking, okay, damn, like I got to work hard too.
Yeah, so damn, this guy wakes up 4 a.m. He's in the gym 3 hours before the tip-off, and he still gets outscored by a bottom-of-the-bench player? Yeah, you know what? That's my leader.
Hey, bro. We're talking about the Miami Heat as a good team right now. We're not talking about the Lakers like this right now. So I just got to –
Well, there's nothing to be said about the Lakers. You might as well just give us our trophy, right? Westbrook or not, we're going to win. But in all reality, that's going to wrap up this week of the Podcast Club. Huge shout-out to you guys coming on, Thomas. GoatedNBAnews.com. You got it right?
Yes, sir.
And Brad from BSscouting. Again, links will be in the description. Any closing statements, Thomas?
Shout out Max, Mamba's Legacy. Go subscribe to our email list at GoatedNBAnews.com for articles dropping every Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
Yeah, he's got an article coming out in about a year when he's going to be talking about the Lakers winning and being the best franchise in NBA history. And
I will
Brad,
write that with tears in my eyes.
hey, look, when you write that, I'm going to push that out to everybody when it happens because it will happen. And Brad, any closing statements?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say thanks, Max, for having me on. Always appreciate it. And one other rookie, we didn't get to this earlier, but one other rookie people should be watching is Franz Wagner, who's looking really nice right now, shooting 46% from three. He's a really solid player for the Magic, so keep your eye on him.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you guys go check out BS Scouting, by the way, especially if you guys are into the rookie race. Brad has sheets on sheets on sheets of stats and stats. He takes photos of the players inside their homes. He has that kind of information.
Shout out to Brad, man. He's the only person who watches the Orlando Magic.
Well, I mean, he's the one fan I saw in the stadium the other day. Hey, but realistic.
Always good with you guys. Always good with you guys.
Hey, so it's always good when you guys come on too. Huge shout out. Remember, guys, check the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.